Hi guys, welcome to my first video. I thought it would be cool to bring you guys through and show you all the books that I don't anticipate on reading or books I have read before, and I honestly just didn't find them that good enough to keep. So let's just get into it. There are a lot of books to get through, and I'll kind of go through, share which each one is about with you, and see if it's something that you guys might like to read or if you guys have read it and kind of what your thoughts were. But let's just go ahead and get started on today's video. The first two books I'm unhauling are One of Us is Lying and One of Us is Next. Honestly, I read these last year and I don't really remember them all that well. I didn't really find this that good of a mystery thriller. I have read better, but they weren't bad. I didn't rate them bad. I think I rated them each a 4-star, like 3-star, I believe. So I feel like if I did rate them a 4, I'd have to kind of put it down to like a 3 or like, yeah, a 3 because I don't remember what happens. But essentially in One of Us is Lying, it follows 5 high school students who all get detention, and when the teacher is out of their room, one of the students dies. They're all suspects of their classmate's murder. One of Us is Next follows 3 main characters, Phoebe, Maeve, and Knox. Maeve is the little sister of the main character of the first book in One of Us is Lying. Essentially, it follows 1 year after Simon dies, and it follows their senior year. Or actually, I don't even know if it's their senior year, but it's a year in high school. They start receiving texts from an anonymous texter, essentially wanting them to either spill their secrets or complete a dare that is very serious and or deadly. One thing I really did like about these books is that it kind of follows each student and their perspectives, which I thought was really interesting. I would recommend if you were getting into mystery. I think these would be like fun and easy to read and really fast paced. Overall, I didn't mind these, but they weren't my favorite, so these have to go. The next book I'm unhauling is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This book, I would have rated it 2 stars. I again read it last year and I did not like it at all. One of my friends actually really likes this book, and I honestly just can't even get myself to read the second book because I really just did not like this first book, so this one has to go. Playlist for the Dead is another book that I've never read it. Essentially, it follows a main character, Sam. He finds something in his best friend's room the morning after they've had their biggest fight ever, and it's attached to a zip drive with a playlist. It is Hayden's suicide note. So sad, and also something that I'm like, I don't know if I want to read that. Sam is desperate for answers and wants to figure out what happened to his best friend. They have to rely on these tapes and their own memory to kind of piece everything together and why what happened. The next book I'm unhauling is called On Edge, A Journey Through Anxiety by Andrea Peterson. Honestly, I picked this book up again probably 5 years ago, and I was really struggling with anxiety, and it was just too triggering for me, and I've never picked it up since, so I'm just unhauling it because I'll probably never read it. I'm gonna give you the synopsis of it so you guys know like what to expect from it. But a racing heart, difficulty breathing, overwhelming dread. Andrea Peterson was first diagnosed with an anxiety disorder at the age of 24, but she later realized that she had been experiencing panic attacks since childhood. With time, her symptoms multiplied. She agonized over every odd physical sensation. She developed fears of driving on highways, going to the movie theaters, and even licking envelopes. Although having a name for her condition was an enormous relief, it was only the beginning of a journey to understand and master it, one that took her from psychiatrist's office to yoga retreats to the Appalachian Trail. I hope I'm saying that right. So essentially, it's a personal story, and it was, just too triggering for me because everything in it is just too real, so I could not finish this, but I am sure it's an amazing read. The next book I am unhauling is called The Leading Edge of Now by Marcy Lynn Curtis. It follows a main girl, Grace, who is just getting used to being an orphan once her dad dies, and her uncle comes back into her life unexpectedly and hasn't spoken to her since her dad died. It kind of follows like her healing journey. Also, what happens if you hurt the people that you love the most while you're healing your own stuff. So I think it sounds really interesting. I've never read this book either. I honestly might I don't know. It doesn't sound very intriguing. I was gonna say I might keep it to read it, but like it doesn't, nothing's drawing me in to like really want to read this, so it has to go. The next book I am unhauling is called The Couple Next Door by Sherry Lapina. I actually have read this book and I rated it, I think, a 4 stars. It was pretty good. It follows 2 main characters who are a couple who also are new parents. They essentially seem to have it all. They have a loving relationship, they have a baby, they have a new family. One night they decide to go over to the neighbors next door for a party and leave their baby sleeping next door. Baby goes missing. Parents, of course, are looked at and are the prime suspects. I'm gonna follow that investigation, other secrets that each person has been hiding that they're now finding out. So it really is a good read and I would definitely recommend this, but it wasn't one that I'm like, oh, I absolutely have to keep this book, but it was a good read while I was reading it. This next book I'm unhauling I've never read. It's called Still Mine by Amy Stewart. It follows a main character, Claire, who is on the run. She ends up in this small town looking for another girl named Shayna. You kind of go through, find out their connection to one another. Claire doesn't know what happened to Shayna, so she tries to figure that out in this. Also, you follow what she's really running from and you kind of follow that plot line as well. It doesn't sound too bad, but I feel like, again, nothing is really like pulling me in and really intriguing me to read this, so I am unhauling it. The next book I'm unhauling is called Until the End by Christopher Pike, which is actually one of my favorite authors, or at least one of the authors that got me into reading in the first place. I read Remember Me by this author, and again, the book is massive, but I read Remember Me. It's the same length pretty much, but I honestly also never read this. But I feel like this plotline follows the exact same plotline as the first book, Remember Me. And I kind of thought, what is the point of reading this when I've already read Remember Me? And it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. But I felt like this would just be a repetitive of the first. I'm just going to read the back of it actually because it's just easier that way. But it says, one night can change everything. As the start of the school year and the popular girls have decided to throw the best party, one of their friends will never forget. But hooking up and hanging out are the furthest things from their minds when the unthinkable happens. Someone doesn't make it out of the party alive. The death is declared a suicide, but nothing quite adds up. Convinced there's a murderer on the loose, no one knows whom they can turn to or whom they can trust. Nowhere is safe. Not the homecoming dance, not even graduation. The truth will terrify them, but it must be revealed. Their lives depend on it. And again, it kind of just follows the same premise as Remember Me, and I just didn't want to read it. And I've had this for probably closer to 10 years. I got it for my birthday one year, probably when I was like 18, but it has to go because I'm just not going to read it. The next book is called Killing Kate by Alex Lake. I picked this book up because honestly the front cover and it says there's a serial killer on the loose and the victims all look like you. I thought that sounded really intriguing and that's what got me to pick up this book in the first place. A serial killer is stalking your hometown. He has a type. All his victims look the same and they all look like you. Kate returns from a post-breakup holiday with her girlfriends to news of a serial killer in her hometown, and all of his victims look like her. It could, of course, be a simple coincidence, or maybe not. That is so creepy. Like, imagine, no. She becomes convinced she is being watched, followed even. Is she next? And could her mild-mannered ex-boyfriend really be a deranged murderer? Or is the truth far more sinister? I think this sounds really good, but again, I've had it for years and I've never read it and I don't know if I'll ever read it. Maybe I might hold on to it because reading the backs of these books are really making me wonder, like, maybe I would read that. The next book is called People Like Us by Dana Mel. I hope I'm saying her name right, but I have read some of this book. I got a bit of the way through and I actually do remember it. Since I was just reading the inside cover, it kind of was all coming back to me, which usually doesn't happen with a book. It essentially follows a main character, Kay, and she reinvents her whole life is now the star soccer player and she's popular, kind of has it going for her until one of the girls ends up dead. She kind of is left to go on this like scavenger hunt to kind of figure out what happened to her and who killed her. It sounds really interesting. I actually might hold on to this to continue reading it because I did enjoy it while I was reading it, but I never finished it, so I'm not sure what I'll do. The next book is called The Chaos of Standing Still by Jessica Brody. It follows a main character who has one unread text message, and it's from her best friend who has passed away, and she can't bring herself to open the text or read the text, but it kind of follows her throughout and like haunts her. And then one night she's stuck at the airport, there's a snowstorm, she can't go anywhere, she runs into the sky and kind of goes from there and follows that whole story, but she can't seem to get over her best friend dying, and it kind of is really tragic, but she's trying to move on. The next book I have that I'm unhauling is called The Becoming of Noah Shaw. This is a series, and honestly I have a few of the books from the series, but I've never read it. Just reading the inside cover of this, I don't understand. I think there's another book that comes before this, but I'm unhauling this because again, I've had it for years and I will probably never get to it. The next book is called To Catch a Killer by Cheryl Scarborough. This follows a main character, Erin, who has been linked to a crime, and not necessarily her, but she was found beside her mother's body, who was brutally murdered, and she was there for 3 days before anyone had found her mom or her. It follows her and her story, and it goes through, there's another murder that happens, and she kind of tries to put the puzzle pieces together to figure out what happened. She thinks that it's her mother's killer that has struck again. When she's questioned by the police, she tells them everything but that suspicion, probably because she thinks they won't believe her. It sounds really interesting. I think I have read part of this before. I'm honestly not 100% sure. It does actually sound really interesting. Again, it makes sense why I picked it up, but I think that I probably won't read it. There's so many other books that I would get to before this one, so I'd rather just go to someone who is obsessed and wants to read it right away. The next book is called The Unbecoming of Dyer. This is, I think, probably the first book of the previous book that I was saying I didn't really understand what it was about, because I think it's part of a series, and I knew I did have a part of the series, not all of it. But this says, you wake up with a memory of the last few days. Your friends were killed in an accident that you miraculously survived. Your family has to move to another state to escape the fallout. You meet a mysterious boy who seems to know more about your past than you do. You start seeing things that possibly can't be there. You're afraid of losing your mind. Can you keep it together? Dyer is about to find out. This is a young adult book, and I feel like it's just too young adult for me. Maybe 5-6 years ago when I did pick up this series, I would have loved it, but I just don't think that the time that I'm in right now, it would be something that I love, and I definitely don't want to waste time reading something I don't think I'm gonna love. It does sound okay, but again, like some of the other books, there's nothing drawing me in or like really making me want to read it. So maybe if you guys have read it, you guys can let me know, but otherwise I think I'm going to be unhauling this because I really don't think that I will get to this or this series anytime soon. The next two books I am unhauling are also part of a series, and I'm not sure kind of what one comes first, but one is called The Thousandth Floor and one is called The Dazzling Heights. Again, I'm not really 100% sure what these books are about or who they follow or what kind of the premise of these books are. I just know that they're young adult, and I don't think that I would get to them anytime soon. Nanny by Lana Ferguson follows a main character, Cassie, who recently loses her job and kind of has to quickly find a new one or come with the terms with firing up her old OnlyFans account until the nanny position becomes available, and it kind of seems too good to be true, but she ends up taking it and getting the job, and the man who she's going to be nannying for has a son, and he's also a chef at a really popular restaurant, and so it kind of goes through that, but then she realizes that he seems a little bit too familiar and realizes that he is one of her biggest OnlyFans subscribers slash fans. I really thought that this would be really good, and it's not that it was bad, and I didn't even finish this. Technically, I DNF'd it, but I probably could have finished it, but like I probably just got into a reading slump and decided that I wasn't going to. So maybe I might before I actually get rid of it, but I don't know. It just like didn't have me wanting to keep reading, but also it's like the first single dad nanny trope kind of plot that I've ever read, so maybe I will give this another shot and see how I like it. This next book is called Cat and Meg Conquer the World. This book used to be really popular and kind of like one of the OG books that everyone was reading, and I picked this up probably again 5-6 years ago, maybe even 7 or 8. I don't know, it was a long time ago, but it just seems like too young for me now, if that makes sense. But essentially it follows two main characters, Cat and Meg. One of them has anxiety and likes to be alone, and the other is Meg, who hates being alone, but her ADHD is pushing people away, so she can't really keep friends close to her. But when they're forced to work on a year-long project for science, they end up realizing they have more things in common than they had originally thought, which one of them being one of the YouTubers that they watch. And Meg is pretty sure that this is fate. Like, she's like, oh my gosh, I found my bestie. And Kat doesn't know how to talk to someone who thinks faster than she thinks. She's like, you're too much for me. What the heck is going on? But they figure out how to help each other in the story and build a friendship that Kat never knew she wanted and that Meg did not think that she would find. So it's like, seems like such a like cute little fun story to read. I think this is just like a little too young for me and something that I've never read or ever gravitated towards, so I will be unhauling this. It's a new day and I forgot to end that video, so I hope you guys enjoyed my first video, and my next one I think will probably be me kind of introducing like what you guys can expect from my channel moving forward, and maybe a vlog of some sort, I don't know. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you when I see you.